Jace Nolan didn't expect to start his Tuesday by throwing himself in front of a speeding car. But when he saw the woman step off the curb just as the horn blared, his body moved before his brain could catch up. "Watch out," he shouted, grabbing her arm and yanking her backward just as the car screeched to a halt inches in front of them. The driver slammed his door and stormed out. "Are you blind? What the hell do you think you're doing?" Jace stepped in front of the woman, shielding her with his body. "She wasn't even in the street until you flew around that corner like a maniac. Back off." The guy looked like he wanted to fight, but after sizing up Jace 6 feet tall, broad-shouldered, and clearly not in the mood, he huffed and stomped back to his car, tires squealing as he drove off. Jace turned around, heart still thudding. "You okay?" The woman blinked like she was just realizing what happened. I think so. I didn't even see him coming. Thank you." Her voice was soft but strong, and when she looked up, Jace forgot how to breathe for a second. Her eyes were this ridiculous shade of green gold, her features delicate but fierce, and her long chestnut hair was pulled back in a way that made her look like she'd just walked out of some fancy magazine shoot. "Really?" "Thank you," she said again, brushing street dust off her coat. He coughed, trying to remind himself to sound normal. "No problem. People drive like they've got 9 lives in this city." She smiled, and it did something weird to his chest. "I'm Elena Vale. Jace Nolan." They shook hands, and her grip was surprisingly firm for someone who looked like she belonged in a glass case at a museum. She glanced past him toward the small hand tugging at his hoodie. "Daddy," the little voice said. "Is the lady okay?" Jace turned and scooped up his daughter. "Yeah, Lulu, she's fine, just a dumb driver." Elena's eyes softened when she looked at the girl. "You must be very brave, Lulu." Lulu beamed. "I'm 5. I start kindergarten next week." Elena crouched to her level. "That's a big deal." "Are you excited?" Lulu nodded proudly. "My daddy packs the best lunches." Jace laughed, a little embarrassed. "She's easy to please, PB&J and a juice box, and I'm a hero." Elena stood. "Well, I owe you lunch for saving my life." He shook his head. "Please don't worry about it." "I insist," she said, smiling like she meant it. "Just a thank you meal. You, me, and Lulu." Jace hesitated. He didn't have time for fancy lunches. Between working construction jobs and picking up shifts at the auto shop, he barely had time to sleep. But something about Elena, maybe it was the way she talked to Lulu like she mattered, or maybe it was that smile made him say, "Okay, but only if I get to pick the place." The next day, they met at a tiny diner across from the park. Jace liked it because they gave free milkshakes to kids and never rushed anyone out, even if they only ordered fries. Elena stood out like a diamond in a gravel lot. She wore tailored jeans and a crisp cream blouse that probably cost more than his month's rent, but she didn't act like it. She slid into the booth next to Lulu and asked which milkshake was best, like she was delighted to be there. "Strawberry," Lulu said sagely. "They use real fruit." Jace couldn't stop watching her. Elena didn't talk about herself much, but she listened like it mattered, and when she laughed, it was the kind that made you want to hear it again. "So what do you do?" he asked after a while. She paused, then said carefully, "I run a few companies, mostly in tech and wellness." He blinked. "Like you own them," she shrugged. "I started one. The rest came later." He whistled low. "That sounds like a big deal." Elena smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "It has its perks." He wondered why she looked almost sad when she said that, but Lulu distracted them by dropping a fry in her milkshake and declaring it the best invention ever. Over the next week, Elena kept showing up. She invited them to a small art fair downtown. She dropped by the park with warm muffins she baked herself, though Jace highly suspected a fancy bakery was involved. She even brought Lulu a tiny stuffed giraffe wearing a pink bow tie and said, "He looked like he needed a home." Jace wanted to push her away. His life was too messy, too unpredictable. He lived in a studio apartment above a noisy bar, worked 2 jobs, and hadn't been on a real date in years. But Elena didn't seem to care. One afternoon, when Lulu was napping on the park bench with her head in Jace's lap, Elena sat beside him and asked quietly, "Does it ever get easier?" He looked at her. "What, being a single parent?" He blinked. It's hard, but I wouldn't trade it. Lulu saved me. After her mom left, I thought I was done. Then she showed up squalling and tiny and demanding, and suddenly I had a reason to try again." Elena looked down. I never had that. I always thought work would be enough. He nudged her knee gently. Maybe you were just waiting for the right reason. She looked up at him, and the moment stretched between them quiet, charged, real. Then Lulu stirred and yawned. Are we having ice cream? Jace chuckled. You were asleep for 2 hours and that's your first thought. Yes, she said confidently. Elena smiled. Then yes, we're absolutely having ice cream. When they dropped Elena off that night, Jace noticed the black SUV parked down the block, the way the driver got out and opened the door like he was used to it. Elena, he asked slowly. She hesitated. It's complicated. He crossed his arms. You have a driver. Yes. Are you rich? She looked him dead in the eye. Yes, he exhaled. Like how rich, millionaire? Several times over. Jace felt like the sidewalk tilted under him. I didn't lie, Elena added. I just didn't want that to be the first thing you knew about me. And now I want you to know who I really am. Lulu peeked out from behind his leg. Does rich mean you have a castle? Elena laughed. No, just a boring house with too many bathrooms. Jace stared at her. Why us? You could be with anyone, someone with a yacht or a private jet. I don't care about that. She stepped closer. I care about how you look at your daughter like she's your whole world. I care about how you jumped in front of a car for a stranger. I care about how you never once asked me for anything. She reached up and touched his cheek. And I care about how I feel when I look at you. He didn't move. Couldn't. His heart was pounding too hard. I'm not looking for a fairy tale, Jace, she whispered. I'm looking for something real. He didn't kiss her then, but something in him shifted, and for the first time in years, Jace Nolan let himself hope. Jace didn't sleep that night. After Elena's confession, he sat on the edge of his bed with Lulu curled beside him, her tiny hand wrapped around his thumb, and stared at the wall like it might offer answers. He wasn't angry, just off balance. The woman who'd been sharing fries with his daughter in a park had a driver waiting to open her door like she belonged at a gala. And yet, she'd never once acted like she was above them. The next morning, he woke up to find Lulu sitting on the floor, brushing knots out of her doll's hair with fierce determination. She said she's coming today, Lulu said without looking up. She's bringing something. Jace frowned. Who said that, Elena? She told me yesterday. Lulu tugged harder. And she pinky promised. He didn't remember hearing that, but Lulu didn't lie about pinky promises. He checked the clock. He had to be at the garage in an hour, and his buddy Jake couldn't cover for him again. He'd been stretched thin ever since the city raised rent on their building, and if the landlord followed through on his latest threat to sell, they'd be out by the end of the month. He pulled his phone from the counter and dialed one of the high school girls who sometimes watched Lulu when he was working late. No answer. He tried another sitter, straight to voicemail. His stomach clenched. The knock on the door came just as he was about to call Jake and beg for one more favor. Elena stood outside, holding a large paper bag and wearing jeans and a soft blue sweater. Her hair was pulled into a loose twist that made her look like she'd just walked off a yacht, and yet she was standing in the hallway of a rundown building with peeling paint and flickering lights like she belonged there. I brought breakfast, she said, holding up the bag. I hope Lulu likes pancakes. Jace blinked. How did you know where? You left the garage address on a receipt in your truck, she said simply. I put 2 and 2 together. He opened the door wider. You didn't have to, I wanted to. She stepped inside and looked around, taking in the patched couch, the cracked tiles, the tiny shelf of children's books beside the TV, but she didn't comment. Instead, she turned to Lulu and said, I have 3 kinds of syrup. Choose wisely. While Lulu dove into the bag, Jace pulled Elena aside. I can't stay, he said. I have work in 20 minutes and no sitter. I was just about to. I can watch her. He stared. I run companies. I think I can manage one 5-year-old for a few hours. He hesitated. You sure? She leaned in. I already cleared my schedule. His brow furrowed. You cleared your schedule to babysit? She raised an eyebrow. I cleared my schedule to spend time with Lulu and maybe you. Jace studied her, then nodded slowly. Okay. But if she eats more than 2 chocolate chips, she turns into a gremlin. Elena grinned. Noted, when he returned that evening, he expected chaos. Instead, he found Lulu wearing a crown made of paper and glitter, sitting at the coffee table beside Elena, who was carefully painting a tiny wooden birdhouse. She said we needed a house for the fairy birds, Elena said without looking up. Apparently they don't like the rain. Jace rubbed the back of his neck. She got you into crafts. She got me into a lot of things today, Elena said softly. After Lulu went to bed, Jace walked Elena to the door. You didn't have to stay all day. I know. He leaned against the frame. You're not what I expected, she tilted her head. What did you expect? I don't know, someone polished, controlled. You're that, yeah, but you also sat on my floor cutting out cardboard wings for 2 hours. I haven't done anything like that in years, she admitted. It felt good. Real, he watched her for a long moment. Why me, Elena? She hesitated. Because when I'm with you, I stop thinking about everything I've built, and for once I just feel. Jace's jaw tightened. You know I can't offer you anything close to what you're used to. I'm not asking for what I'm used to, she said quietly. I'm asking for what I've never had. She left before he could answer. Over the next week, Elena became part of their rhythm. She picked Lulu up from school when Jace was stuck at the garage, helped with homework, even taught her how to fold origami animals. But she never pushed, never asked for anything more than time. Then one afternoon, Jace came home to find Lulu sitting on the counter, dipping strawberries in melted chocolate. Elena said strawberries are good for your heart, she announced. She's right, he said, kissing the top of her head. Where is she? Taking a call in your room, Lulu said. Jace found Elena standing by the window, voice low and clipped. I told you not to involve them, she said. If this goes public, I walk. Understood. She hung up and turned, startled when she saw him. Who was that? He asked. She hesitated. Elena, he said, stepping closer. What's going on? She exhaled. My family's company is being sold. I'm fighting it, but someone's leaking things to the press. They're using my personal life as leverage. His eyes narrowed. You mean us? I didn't want you dragged into this. Her voice was tight, but someone saw us. There are photos. If they go live, it could ruin everything I'm trying to protect. So what? You're saying it's over? No, she said instantly. I'm saying I need time to fix it. I need to make sure no one can use you or Lulu to get to me. He looked away. You're trying to protect us by pushing us out. I'm trying to protect you by keeping the world from tearing you apart. He ran a hand through his hair. You know, I thought I couldn't offer you anything. Turns out I was the one being offered up. That's not fair, she said. No, it's not, he snapped. But it's real, and I don't want my daughter caught in the crossfire of your empire. Elena stepped forward. I will fix this. He didn't move. I care about you, Jace, and I love that little girl like she's mine. I'm not walking away. But I need time. He looked at her torn. She deserves the truth, he said finally. So do I. I'll give it to you, Elena whispered. All of it. And then she left, her heels echoing down the hallway like a promise too heavy to carry. The first message came through Jace's manager at the garage. Some woman in heels and a pencil skirt just stormed in here asking to see you, said she was your lawyer. Jace had paused mid-oil change, his hands dripping grease. What? She left this. The manager handed him a thick envelope with his name printed in gold ink. Inside was a letter, printed on high-quality paper with a firm but respectful tone. You are entitled to representation in the matter of media exposure and privacy protection. Miss Vale has taken necessary steps to shield both you and your daughter from further intrusion. Jace hadn't even known there was a matter. But over the next 2 days, it became clear. Paparazzi had shown up outside Lulu's school. A camera crew tried to catch him leaving the garage. One guy even followed him on the subway, asking rapid-fire questions about his relationship with tech mogul Elena Vale. He nearly punched the man, but Lulu had been holding his hand. By the 3rd day, Elena hadn't called, not once, not even to explain. So when a black sedan pulled up outside the garage after closing, Jace didn't wait for the driver to open the door. He walked around and yanked it open himself. Elena was inside, her face pale, her jaw tight. You're being followed, he said flatly. People are taking pictures of my daughter. I know, she said, her voice hoarse. I've been in court all day trying to stop it. Then stop hiding from me and tell me what's going on. She gestured for him to get in. He hesitated, then slid into the back seat. As the car pulled away, she stared out the window for a moment before speaking. My father's board threatened to remove me as CEO. They think I've become a liability. The photos of us gave them ammunition. So I filed an injunction to block all personal coverage until the sale is finalized. Jace crossed his arms. And you didn't think to warn me. I didn't want you to panic. He barked a laugh. I've got strangers asking Lulu if she's the heir to a tech throne, and you think I'm going to calmly ignore that. I made a mistake, she said quietly. I thought I could handle it alone. I was wrong. He looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time she didn't seem composed. Her posture was rigid, eyes rimmed with exhaustion, her nails bitten down at the edges. Why are you still fighting this? He asked. You could let the board have it, walk away. Because I built it, she said. And they're trying to sell it to a foreign investor who doesn't care about employees or ethics. If I walk away now, everything I've created will be gutted. She turned to him. But if I stay, I lose you. He didn't speak for a moment. Then you don't get to make that decision for me. The car pulled to a stop in front of a quiet townhouse. Not her usual place, the windows were dark, the exterior simple, no guards in sight. What is this? He asked. Somewhere safe, she said. No one knows about it. I bought it before the company went public. We can talk here. No cameras. Inside, the space was modest wood floors, soft lighting, a small kitchen that looked barely used. She led him to a couch and poured 2 glasses of water. I know how this looks, she said, handing him one. Money, lawyers, secret houses. But I'm not trying to impress you. I'm trying to keep you out of a war I never wanted. Jace leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Elena, I'm not scared of your world. I'm scared of what it does to people. She sank onto the couch beside him. I used to think I was above it, that I could have success without damage, but I've lost friends, I've lost sleep, I've lost myself more than once. He looked at her. And now, I don't want to lose you. His throat tightened. I know this isn't fair, she went on. You didn't ask for any of this, but you walked into my life and made it better without asking for anything, and that terrifies me. Why? Because I don't know how to be loved for who I am when I'm not in control. He reached out, brushing her hand. Then maybe it's time you stop trying to control everything. She looked down at their hands. Do you still want this, even with the chaos? He didn't answer right away. Then, slowly, I don't care about chaos, I care about what Lulu sees. And she sees someone who makes her feel safe. Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them back. I want to be that person, she whispered, for both of you. He exhaled. Then stop running, let me help. She nodded, a single, decisive motion. I have a press conference tomorrow, she said. I'm going to tell them everything, the relationship, the injunction, the truth. Jace raised an eyebrow. You sure about that? I've never been more sure of anything. He stood, pulling her up gently. Then I'll be there. She stared at him. You'd really stand next to me. In front of all that, if that's the only way they'll understand who we are, yeah, her breath hitched. I don't deserve you. He touched her face. No, Elena, you fought like hell to become who you are. Maybe you just forgot you didn't have to do it alone. For the first time in days, she smiled, not for the cameras, not for the board, but for him. I want to meet you in your world, he said, but only if you're willing to step into mine, too. I want both, she said, the suit and the sidewalk. The boardroom and the bedtime stories. He nodded. Then we start tomorrow. As he left the townhouse and walked back to the subway, he didn't feel like the guy who fixed brakes and scrubbed oil off his hands anymore. He felt like a man who was finally stepping into something bigger than fear. Something real. The press conference was held in a glass-walled atrium in Midtown, beneath a suspended garden of orchids and steel. It was the kind of place designed to impress and intimidate, suited for high-stakes announcements and carefully curated appearances. Elena stood behind the podium, flanked by 2 attorneys and her longtime operations director. But it was the man standing silently just behind her, holding his daughter's hand, that stole every camera's focus the moment the lights came up. Jace wore a navy blazer Elena had left hanging in his locker at the garage that morning, with a note that simply read, "If you stand with me, wear this." He didn't ask how she knew his size. He didn't ask why it was tailored like it had been waiting for him all along. The room quieted as Elena adjusted the microphone. "Thank you for coming," she began, her voice clear but unembellished. "I'm not here today to deny anything. I'm here to confirm it." She glanced back at Jace, then forward again. "Yes, I'm in a relationship with Jace Nolan." No, it was not manufactured. No, it was not leveraged for publicity. And no, I will not allow it to be weaponized by parties interested in destabilizing my leadership. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, but she didn't falter. My personal life has never interfered with board performance, shareholder value, or executive function. The suggestion that a woman's relationship must be dissected to determine her professional worth is outdated and offensive. If protecting what I care about makes me less palatable to those who profit from control, then I accept the consequences. A journalist near the front stood. Miss Vale, are you saying you're stepping down? No, she said. I'm saying I'm staying, and I'm taking back control of my narrative. This is not a scandal. This is my life. Jace didn't speak. He didn't need to. He stood tall, his hand resting protectively on Lulu's shoulder, his presence saying what words couldn't. I'm here. I'm not leaving. After the conference, Elena led them through a back corridor, out of range from the remaining press, her pace measured but tight. How's your heart? Jace asked as they reached the car. Still beating, she replied. Barely, mine's somewhere between a heart attack and a standing ovation. Lulu piped up from behind him. You looked like a queen. Elena crouched beside her. You think so? You talked like you weren't scared. I was. But sometimes you do the brave thing first and feel the fear later. Jace watched them, a strange ache blooming behind his ribs. It wasn't just admiration. It was the realization that this woman, this relentlessly composed, terrifyingly brilliant woman had chosen to stand in front of a world that had only ever demanded perfection, and show them something human instead. Later that night, Elena invited them to the townhouse again. But this time, it wasn't sterile or quiet. There was music playing jazz, low and unassuming, and the smell of roasted garlic and lemon filled the air. You cooked? Jace asked, stepping into the kitchen with Lulu at his heels. I hired someone, she said unapologetically. But I plated it myself, he grinned. That counts. Dinner was slow, warm, filled with little stories from Lulu about school and the new art teacher who wore shoes that squeaked every time she walked. Elena listened like she had nowhere else to be, laughing with her eyes as much as her mouth. After dessert, while Lulu curled up with a storybook in the other room under the watchful eye of Elena's discreet but ever-capable assistant, Jace stepped onto the balcony with her. The sky was clear, the stars faint behind the city haze, but the quiet between them was real. Today could have gone 100 different ways, he said, leaning against the rail. You sure you're okay with how it played out? I am now. He looked down at her. I've never known anyone who could stand in front of a firing squad and make them lower their weapons. She turned toward him, her voice softer. I've never had anyone behind me who made me feel like I didn't have to fight alone. He hesitated, then reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Her breath caught, but he held up a hand. It's not what you think, he said quickly. Not yet, she blinked. He opened it to reveal a delicate silver pendant on a fine chain. In the center was a small hand-cut piece of sea glass soft green, smoothed at the edges. I found it with Lulu at the lake last summer, he said. She said it looked like a piece of the sky fell into the water and forgot how to be sharp. Elena touched it gently. It's beautiful. It's not diamonds or gold, but it meant something to her, and now it means something to me. She looked up at him. You're giving it to me. I'm giving you a promise, he said. I don't know what kind of future we're walking into, but I know I want to walk into it with you, not behind you, not under you, beside you. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she unclasped her necklace, one he recognized from the early days, all sleek lines and designer branding, and replaced it with the sea glass. Then she stepped closer, slid her fingers into his, and whispered, I've never wanted anything more. He kissed her, finally, without hesitation. Not because it was dramatic, not because it was expected, but because everything in his body told him it was the only possible conclusion to this moment. When they pulled apart, she rested her forehead against his. I used to think love had to be earned through perfection, she said. But you've shown me it's in the moments where we let go of all that and just choose each other, flaws and all. And I used to think I wasn't allowed to want more than survival, he murmured. But you showed me there's a life beyond just getting by. Inside, Lulu called out, asking if everyone was still awake because the giraffe wanted a bedtime song. Elena laughed, the sound warmer than the spring air. Jace reached for the door, then paused. "You coming?" She nodded. "Always." As they stepped back inside, two adults from opposite worlds, united not by convenience or fantasy, but by choice, Elena caught his hand in hers, lacing their fingers together like it had always been that way. And somehow it felt like it had. The boardroom was silent. Elena stood at the head of the long marble table, the skyline behind her lit in gold from the setting sun. A dozen faces stared back at her, some skeptical, some cautious, others unreadable. She didn't blink, not this time. "I'm not here to convince you of my capability," she said, her voice steady. "You've seen the numbers. I'm here to inform you of the direction this company is taking under my leadership. The deal with Vortex Capital is off." A man in his 60s adjusted his glasses. "That acquisition was projected to increase our value by 20%, she cut in. "At the expense of every division we've built based on ethics, innovation, and internal sustainability. I won't trade our foundation for short-term growth." An older woman across from her tapped a pen, appraising Elena. "And your personal matters. They've become a liability." "They're not," Elena replied. "They've been used as a distraction. My relationship has no bearing on my ability to lead, and unless one of you would like to discuss your own private lives in this room, I suggest we move on." No one spoke. She didn't wait for a vote. She wasn't asking for permission. When she walked out, her assistant trailed behind, holding a thick folder. "Everything's in motion," she said. "Your legal team finalized the restructure. You're protected." Elena nodded. "Send the press release tonight. And schedule the all-staff meeting for tomorrow. I want every employee to hear it from me." Outside, the black sedan waited, but she didn't get in. Instead, she walked 2 blocks in heels that pinched, past people who didn't know her name and didn't care who she was. It felt good. She reached the corner of a quiet neighborhood and knocked on a scarred apartment door. Jace opened it, barefoot, with Lulu perched on his hip, and a set of tiny plastic wings taped to her back. "We're playing Sky Fairies," he said. "Clearly," Elena murmured. "Did I interrupt?" Lulu shook her head. "You can be the queen. I already flew too much." Jace set her down. "Go get your wand, kiddo." Once she disappeared into the other room, he looked at Elena. "So, did you win?" "I didn't lose," she said. "That's enough for now." He stepped closer, brushing hair from her cheek. "You look different. I feel different." She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small envelope. "This came today. I wasn't sure whether to open it alone." He took it, eyebrows lifting slightly. Inside was a crayon drawing Lulu's, unmistakably. 3 stick figures held hands beneath a crooked rainbow. One tall man, one smaller girl with a pink dress, and one woman with a triangle crown and blue hair. Above them, in bright letters, "My family." Jace's jaw tightened. "She did this last night." "I know," Elena said quietly. "She told me, said she wanted to make it real." His hand closed around the drawing. "It is real." Elena didn't speak. She just kissed him soft, slow, certain. Later that week, they packed up the studio apartment. It didn't take long. Jace hadn't accumulated much over the years, and what he had, he chose carefully. Lulu's bookshelf, the kitchen stool she'd painted with glitter, the faded blanket she refused to sleep without. Elena never suggested they discard anything. She simply made room. The townhouse became their home not because it was spacious or private, but because they filled it with new things. The first framed photo of the 3 of them, a height chart taped to the pantry wall, the smell of burnt pancakes when Jace tried to surprise them on Sunday. One evening, after Lulu had fallen asleep curled against Elena's side during a movie, Jace stood at the doorway watching them. "You know," he said, "if someone had told me 6 months ago I'd be here, I would have laughed." She looked up. "And now I can't imagine being anywhere else." She eased off the couch, careful not to wake Lulu, and walked to him. "You're not still waiting for the other shoe to drop, I think," he said, wrapping his arms around her waist. "It already did." "And we're still standing." She leaned into him. "I've spent most of my life proving I didn't need anyone, that I could build something alone. And I was wrong." He kissed her forehead. "We all need someone." She tilted her head. "So what now? We build something together." The next morning, they sat on the back patio while Lulu chased butterflies through the grass. Jace held a mug of coffee, his free hand resting on Elena's knee. "You know what I was thinking," he said. Dangerous words, he laughed. "You've spent your whole life building empires. I spent mine trying to make ends meet. We were never supposed to work." "And yet," she said, "here we are. I don't want to wait anymore." She turned to him. "For what?" "For this to feel permanent." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small black box, the real one this time. Her breath caught. "I don't need a cathedral or cameras. I don't need 1,000 guests or a designer suit. I just need you." She opened the box. Inside was a simple gold band, elegant and unadorned. "Yes," she said without hesitation. 100 times yes. They didn't plan a wedding. They planned a life. One where they walked Lulu to school together, argued over which couch to keep, took turns making breakfast and burning toast. Where Elena held his hand under the table during tense meetings, and Jace left notes in her briefcase with hearts drawn by Lulu. Where love wasn't about grand moments, but about choosing each other every single day. And on a quiet afternoon, with the windows open and the sound of laughter echoing down the hall, they stood in the living room, just the three of them, and said their vows. No fanfare. No audience, just promise. Because in the end, it wasn't about a billionaire and a mechanic. It wasn't about power or money or headlines. It was about a woman who'd spent her life building walls and a man who broke them down with kindness. About a little girl whose drawing came true, and about a love built not on perfection, but on truth. They were a family, and they were home.